Hello, my name is Abnet. In this project, we will focus on three-tier architecture for modern web application. In this project, my focus is not developing or building a modern web application, but as an Azure administrator, configuring or providing the solution to build modern web application with high availability, scalability, and security. So let's start this project. This is a documentation of the project with its diagrammatical uh, page, with its diagrammatical architecture. So the first is the front end page. So the front end or the presentation tier is configured with virtual machine skill sets and public load balancer. So the users from the internet is able to access the public load balancer, and this public load balancer is able to forward traffics to healthy virtual machines in the virtual machine scale set. So this is the front end server, and here is the load balancer with its public IP address, and we can also see the availability of this virtual machine scale set. So for high availability, I distributed this resource into three zones. The region is here Canada Central. So there might be failure in zone 1, maybe data center failure or other type of failure, but the website will be available still without no downtime from zone 2 and zone 3. So this is how I use availability zones to provide high availability. And in scalability level, so it is automatic scaling. So based on the CPU matrix threshold, it is able to scale out and scale in virtual machines if there is high load from the internet, so without preventing traffics not to access the web server. So it's able to provide response for the incoming requests with um, with this scalability level. That means here this is the threshold, the CPU matrix. That means the average virtual machine CPU threshold. The CPU metric threshold is greater than 80, increase count by 1, and this is how we can scale in decrease by 1 when the CPU is less than 20. So this is automatic scaling. And for the security level, for the security level, the first one is I use security group, network security group to prevent other types of protocols, but allows only port 80 and port 443 here. Port 80 is allowed, and to connect with the virtual machine, I allowed also 3389, the RDP protocol, to get this virtual machine here. This is the 4082.190.54 is the IP address of the public load balancer. So through my local machine, I'm able to access this load balancer. So this one is how this public load balancer is secure in its subnet. So only port 80 is allowed, and we can also add port 443 for HTTPS protocol, and it has load balancer. This load balancer has its own role, and we can see here the load balancing rule. It is also port 80 here. This is a load balancing rule. That means any type of port rather than port 80 is not allowed to access the front-end page of this website. That means it's not able to access the virtual machine skill set. So here is the backend pool. The backend pool is the virtual machine skill set, and this is the private IP address of the virtual machine instance. So this is how we configure the front end page. So I use a simple JavaScript code to load the front end page of the website. Here is it. This is the simple JavaScript code, and this index.html code is able to forward traffic to this IP address. This one is the internal load balancer of the backend pool, because I also deploy the virtual machine scale set for the backend pool with Ubuntu server Node.js, and this Ubuntu server virtual machine scale set is associated or integrated with internal load balancer. So for high security reason, any user from the internet is not able to access this internal load balancer, but they are only able to access the public load balancer. So this internal load balancer is only able to be accessed by the front end page or the presentation tier, rather than other users or other resources. So this is how internal load balancer is accessed by this front end page. This front end page, and it fetch here API images from storage account. So let's move to the backend pool. Let's move to the backend pool. Here is the backend pool. The backend pool, as I told you, it is also deployed with virtual machine scale set, and it has its own load balancer, internal load balancer. Here, this is the internal load balancer, and the IP address is this one, and it has its own rules. Only allowed port here 3000. Port 3000 is allowed for this one. Port 3000 is allowed here. We can see it. Here, port 3000 is allowed. So when traffic is come with other type of port, it may be 50,000, it may be other type, any type of port is not allowed. So this ensures high security. This ensures high security. And for scalability, the same as the front end page, but based on our desire and our workload type, we can change everything. It is not static. We can change this one, the threshold. Now, for now, the CPU is greater than 80. The CPU matrix is greater than 80, increase by count by 1, and the CPU matrix is less than from 20%, decrease count by 1. So, and the minimum is 1 and the maximum is 20. That means if the CPU matrix is greater than 80, this system, the virtual machine scale set, is able to increase instances or virtual machines up to 20 virtual machines. This is to handle high traffic. This is to handle high traffic. If our websites if our websites have high traffic, so without no downtime, this ensures to handle the incoming traffic. So here is the availability, the same as with the front end page. So it's deployed in 3 zones here: zone 1, zone 2, zone 3 in Canada Central region. So we can change also Canada Central when we develop this, or when we create or configure this architecture. We can use any type of region, but sometimes virtual machine sizes may not be found in some zones. So we have to be curious when we select or choose regions. So for security, I used NSG, as I told you, network security group, and it allowed port here 3000, and to connect with this Ubuntu server. Here the server is running on port 3000. I used SSH port 22. So I showed you the load balancer security, and this load balancer receives traffic from the front end and distributes to healthy virtual machines because of the existence of health probe. So it distributes only for health virtual machines, healthy virtual machines. So this is the backend configuration. The second is the storage account to store images or static images, and I created private endpoint to allow fetching of image only from the backend tier. That means only from the Ubuntu server. Here, this server is able to access the storage account, but rather any type of request is unable to access this storage account from the internet or from any type of position, but users can't access this storage account because here the public network access is disabled, and we created here private endpoint. We created private endpoint here. We created private endpoint, and here the subnet is the app subnet. That means this virtual machine is also found in the app subnet. So through that private endpoint, this Ubuntu server is able to access that storage account. So this is the configuration of how Ubuntu server access this storage account to fetch data from uh, this storage account. Here is the app.js. This is the storage. This is HTTPS or URLs of URLs of the image stored in storage account storage 6655506. So this is how this app.js fetch image and forward based on its API image to the presentation tier. So I stored simple image, and we can see how we can fetch uh, image from the storage account. So I think the IP address is 4082 40. So here the same IP address 4082.190.54 and index.html. So now it is able to fetch image here. So this is stored in storage account and able to fetch this image from that storage account and display it for users. So in this project, my focus was to configure three-tier architecture to provide these solutions for modern web apps. This solution is highly available because of zones, distributed in 3 zones, highly scalable, and able to handle incoming traffics with any type of load because it has automatic scaling method, and it is secured because of network security group configuration and load balancer rules. So this is all about the project. Thank you.